Offerings and Guardians, the sculpture of Francine Secretan. From Europe to Bolivia, she left 3 decades ago in search of the spirituality of pre-Hispanic culture. The sculpture of Francine Secretan is a reflection of the conception that she has of the world.
Well, I was born in Neuchâtel in Switzerland, and I was always attracted for South America. Since I was 15 years old, at the time when the Bolivian music was played a lot in Europe. And I think there was when I started feeling the seeds and the desire of knowing South America. So more and more I felt a desire of being able to see this continent. And also when I studied at the university, all the culture, the pre-Columbian culture, Mexican Aztecs, Mayas, Tiahuanaco, fascinated me due to their strength, their greatness. And after finishing the university, I went directly to South America. I came to Bolivia. And I think there is where a fundamental limestone of my life, not only of my life, but of my work. Because I think that in Europe there was more knowledge of aesthetics. I think that everything that I was studying there was approached, directed to the forms, to the aesthetics of forms, without the concepts, without the content. And I think that coming here with an open mind, with a virgin mind, without any prejudice, I started discovering the wealth of the Andean world. I was fascinated by the ceremonies, by the relationship of man and nature, and little by little I started to integrating those elements, that way of life, not only on my personal experience, but also on my work. And from then on, I had all these Illa series that were produced. And I think that an artist is always fulfilled with what is around them, the surrounding, the way of living, the way of feeling, the place where one is working. And I've received a tremendous influence, an enormous strength of all this world. This magic world, this mysterious world, which is precisely the world of the rituals, of ceremonies, because I think that the main difference between Switzerland, Europe, and Bolivia or South America, it is precisely the relationship of men and women with their environment. Because I think that in Europe, men dominate nature, while here in Bolivia, I think that there is a very close relationship between men, women, and nature, Pachamama, the mountains. And it is not a superior being. There is a relationship of equality, a relationship of respect, and that is precisely what it started getting into my thoughts, and this was transmitted into my work.
In Secretan's sculpture, a bond is felt between the traditional and the modern. Magic, ancestors, and the arcane are reflected in eminently modern works. As such, far from repeating and paraphrasing mechanical forms and concepts of a distant past, they put forth a strictly creative and very personal understanding.
Precisely, because I think that a tree has roots. So if I come here and it is that power, that strength within the Aymara culture, within the oldest cultures like Tiahuanaco. There is precisely aesthetic, but it is sustained by the content, by the forms. And I believe that what I do is to be somehow a filter. One is taking this vocabulary, this series of symbolisms that exist in the sculptures, the pre-Columbian cultures, and in some way it turns and it projects to the present. This past gets into the present, and we could say it moves into the future, towards the future.
A tree trunk is a piece of wood. A sheet of steel is nothing more than any other piece of steel. With her feelings and thoughts, with intuition and sensitivity, and with her own hands, she transforms these materials into unique objects. She gives them their own identity. She brings them out of the world of common things to convert each one into the carrier of an unmistakable symbolic charge.
For me, we could say wood is an expression that comes from earth, from the soil. I think that each material has an essence. So I begin to establish a type of a relationship, of dialogue with what the material gives to you, be wood or metal, and what one feels, what one is. And I do not work wood the same way as I work metal. So for me, I've always had been in 2 feet. I worked certain times with wood and certain times with metal, because I say that it requires a different approach. It requires an possibility, a look, a challenge. And I think it is to demand from ourselves. It's like provoking the process of creativity. So when I work with wood, I think that my pieces are more related to the Pachamama, with the inners, with the earth. And these are pieces that have a aggressive content, a stronger content. And when I work with metal, it's a clinging, because metal is a material that is neutral. It does not have interior life, not so strong and powerful as wood. Therefore, it lets it be driven in a free way, with greater freedom. And for me, there are ways that are more clean, forms that they belong to the higher spiritual world.
Francine Secretan organized an exhibition in her studio, allowing the sculptures to convert themselves into offerings and evoke that need for forming bridges between the material world and the spiritual world. Next to the pieces of wood and metal, arranged in the gardens and the studio itself, which became a kind of altar, she distributed other elements, each having its significance.
I am not tidy in my workshop, because that tidiness in my workshop frightens me. So I had a tremendous, and it was so untidy, even though I knew where the pieces were, but there were so many elements. I think that one sometimes is afraid of an emptiness, because when everything is in order or tidy, there's no possibility of changes, because it is that way. It was like an archaeological feel. I had hundreds of drawings of models, of forms, and precisely on those empty moments that one has to say, well, what do I do now? What? So one feels back up for what one has done, and one looks and says, well, yes, it's okay, it's all right, because it gives you somehow security. and moves you towards going ahead. But now that I have emptied everything, it's going to be like a new thought of beginning again, to say I have reached a level and now I have to begin again. I think with a strength, with a power, with a different way of feeling. In a way, it's like challenging myself as well. I think one evolves under certain pressure, and that for me has been a very important challenge, quite big.
The series of sculptures, Offerings, is able to fuse two preferred materials, wood and metal, achieving a symbiosis in absolute natural balance. The whole provides a physical space that the observer senses and that he wants to penetrate, studying its forms, analyzing its outlines, and attentively walking around the object.
These are offerings because it's necessary that today we should realize that we have to have a very respectful relationship, very closely linked with the environment. The crisis that we're going through all over is due precisely because men and women have forgotten that knowledge of belonging. Belonging to a universe, to a cosmos. And when one sees the civilizations, the older ones, I think they had precisely that knowledge, that wisdom of having the awareness of being related to the planets, to the cosmos, and to the universe. There was an integration, a greater integration. And like in my own life, because I think what I do is always a reflection of what I feel and what I am. So I'm realizing precisely that my life does not belong to my relative body. I am experimenting that we are influenced by everything and that everything is influencing one self. That's why a sculpture, the small pieces, for instance, were always isolated. I finished a piece and I placed them on a pedestal. And in this show, I have another presentation, another questioning, because it's in this circular place. There are many pieces that are directly in contact with the earth, but they're also integrated with geometrical forms and nature elements like flower petals and rice, and the candles. The candles, the fire is precisely the purification. The rice is the symbol of purity, abundance, and the petals are the symbol of the ephemeris. So sculpture begins to establish a dialogue among those elements that are not sculptures as such, but precisely it is a connection that slowly integrates within the environment, within the ample environment. Not only those elements are there, but as well what unifies all the pieces in this space, that at the end it has become like an altar, a mystic place, a sacred place. It is the sense, it is music. And this music is called Gandharva Veda, which is precisely music of expression of vibrations of nature at certain given hours. When the person goes into this space, is that the majority of their senses are centered, because you have the visual matter, which is sculptures, then the music that it's an expression of vibrations of nature. In other words, I put different music depending on the hour. And then there's also the scent, and I think there is a very interesting phenomenon that takes place. Usually when one goes to a show, there is a movement that goes to the exterior. Someone looks the work of art, and then it goes out. But when one goes into this show exposition, it's an inverse phenomenon, because the person begins to move within its own world, transcendent within its vision, to be able to go from the outside world to its own world. And this is accomplished because the ear, the smell, the sight are stimulated. It's very interesting, because when people get out of here, are like if they have received a doses of peace and tranquility. It is quite interesting to see how people go in and see this world, mysterious and magic world, that has been, I think, a tremendous challenge to be able to transform my workshop. That's where I feel, where I leave the process of creativity takes place here, and all of a sudden to transform it into a total purity, tidiness. So once again, it's a way of evolving, because I think that if I sculpture is to move forwards in my way, in my path.
The places evoked by Francine Secretan's work are a reflection of the conception that she has of the world, of the experiences that live in ceremonies and rituals of the Altiplano, and that have marked her forever. For her, everything is saturated in spirituality. The stone, the tree, the animal, the mountains, the planet, and the cosmos are different levels of the energy that is in each of the things that surround us.
I've had many experiences with the Yatiris, and they are precisely in contact with nature. They are in contact with the mountains, with the apus, with the achachilas, with all that world that for the majority of people is dead. A human being thinks that the maximum expression of nature is themselves, and what they see or feel, it is at lower levels, like animal, trees, earth. And this spiritual world is more abstract, it's unreachable. And I think that it is an experience that allows ourselves to feel when the Yatiris or when the natives or other people of civilizations that in some way we call primitive are the ones that have maintained that important relationship with the different elements. So if I am participating of all this in the highlands and in these places, I am terribly touched by it. So that transformation takes place of what I live. When I came to Bolivia in some way, I think I was already prepared. It was like a revelation. It was inside of me. It is very clear. It's faith. It's a way of being convinced, that all this is real, it's true, and it exists. because that matter of offering, it is so important. We have forgotten that at the moment the only thing we do is to offer have offerings to this relative world. The only thing that the human being wants at this moment is try to satisfy that relative world, and we forget completely about that infinite, immense world, which is the absolute. And in this matter is that the Yatiris use animals, candy, scent, all these elements that are used to carry out their ceremonies. It is a way of establishing a link through the symbol. Symbols are it's not abstract, it's a way of having energy. That's why my sculptures, I think, or a work of art, what it does is that it begins to get connected to the world of the artist and the form that is created by that energy that begins to dialogue with the future material. And the result of the object that has been created becomes like a close fence in of the energy. It keeps inside. There is the static part and the content. So when there's an union in harmony, a perfect union among those, the content and the meaning, I think that the work of art acquires its own life. And all the symbols that the Yatiris use is a way of being able to establish in this link with the different levels of nature. And thus to be listened to, because if there is a dialogue established between the mountains and the gods or the spirits that inhabit those mountains, really a contact is established. It is at the moment being discovered that the human being is a reflection, exact reflection of the cosmos, and that we are connected with certain elements of our organism and that correspond to certain planets. Therefore, as I said, we are not isolated. We are in very close contact. That's why I'm so interested in these offerings to the sun, to the moon, the offerings of the condor to the sun, to begin to see in a subjective way this way of thinking.
Producing an exhibition is a different challenge each time, but always full of adventures as well as uncertainties. It is a necessity to state the concepts clearly, the way of thinking and living. It is certainly the reflection of a period of existence that takes form. It is energy locked into the sculptures and enduring there, in the time of a season, of a new harvest. It is a pause, a detention, an interruption. This truce frightens, but it is indispensable. It pushes one to analyze, investigate, verify, fathom, to know if the road taken is the correct one, if it leads to an identity, and authenticity, a reality. It is to be suspended for a moment in a space, an enclosure, and look and observe objectively. And all the same questions arise and flower with variable intensity. The immense desire to get closer and join oneself to the memory, achieve consciousness, the consciousness, our consciousness. Guardians of memory. Guardians of memory, solid, surprised, daring, slender and silent, containing their immortality. Incorruptible, they care for and treasure. They jealously respect the beginning, the spring, oasis of our memories. Inoffensive and kind sand, breath of the waves. Scepters, manifestation of palpable wisdom revealed. Rounded stone, the start of spirals, Genesis. The moment's farewell, eternity attained, casually invented, truce, postponement, break. Guardians of memory, solid, surprised, daring. In space, the virtual gardens listen, safeguard, isolate the sounds of the perfumes entrusted and hidden. They shelter, they welcome, patient memory, immutable. With her work, she sets out to recover the importance of content in sculpture, as opposed to the recreation of the merely formal. She is satisfied by each work and claims that she does not expect the public to have the same experience she does. Instead, the public must freely interpret each sculpture.
अथ एकषष्टितमं सूक्तम् सप्तविंशत्यचस्यास्य सूक्तस्य मानवो नाभानेदिष्ठ ऋषिः विश्वे देवा देवताः त्रिष्टुप्छन्दः इदमित्थारौद्रं गोर्तवचा ब्रह्म क्रत्वा शच्यामन्तराजौ प्राणायदस्य पितरा मंहनेष्ठाः पर्षत्पक्थे अहन्ना